In this module, we are going to learn money creation, money multiplier and determinants of money supply. Money, that is M1, consists of two basic components, currency held by the public and checkable deposits. Money can be created either by creating currency or by creating checkable deposits. Printing paper currency is the traditional method of money creation and it brings in inflation when the economy is operating at full employment level of output. However, when it comes to monetary policy and controlling the money supply, the creation of checkable deposits is the more important of the two methods. Money creation or credit creation is a special function of commercial banks under the fractional reserve banking, and this process of money creation is controlled by the central bank of the country. Monetary base refers to the supply of funds available for use either as cash or reserves of the central bank. Monetary base along with the money multiplier determines the level of money supply in the economy. Let us now discuss the money creation process and the determinants of money supply in detail.
After studying this module, you shall be able to know the process of creation of money or credit creation, understand the ratio approach to the creation of deposit money, identify the money multiplier and determinants of money supply, evaluate the effect of money multiplier on money supply, derive the money multiplier. Let us begin with creation of money or credit creation. The commercial banks receive checkable deposits from the depositors which they can use for lending purposes after keeping an appropriate amount of reserves for meeting distress demand of the depositors or for conducting day-to-day operations. The deposits that banks receive are of two types, primary deposits and derivative deposits. Primary or real deposits are those initial deposits that the banks receive from original depositors. A part of primary deposits is lent out to some other people by crediting their bank accounts with the loan amount. It implies that a major part of the deposits remain with the bank, which it can further use to create more money. So, it can be said that deposits create loans and loans create deposits. Thus, larger the size of primary deposits, the greater will be the expansion of credit. So, banks are in a position to create a large volume of deposit money on the basis of a given amount of reserves. This can happen because all the transactions do not use cash. In fact, most of the transactions use the other banking instruments like check, bank's promises, etc. So, majority of transactions remain restricted on paper. A small amount of transactions which actually materialize can use the cash reserves. Thus, credit creation is the power of banks to expand deposits through the process of expanding loans, advances, and investments. Now, we will see the ratio approach to the creation of deposit money. Whenever a bank receives cash deposits from its customers, it leads to creation of asset for the depositors and the same deposit is the liability for the bank. The bank can use these deposits for making loans to other persons, but the bank cannot use the whole of deposits for this purpose. The proportion of deposits a bank can loan out depends upon the legal reserve ratio known as LRR that is fixed by the central bank. Legal reserve ratio is the fraction of total deposits that a bank has to keep as cash. It has two components. A part of LRR, which a bank has to keep in cash form with the central bank, is called cash reserve ratio, that is CRR. The other part which a bank has to keep with itself in the form of liquid assets is called statutory liquid ratio, that is SLR. It means that banks can issue loans equal to a fraction of total deposits they receive. The banking experience says that not all depositors approach the bank for withdrawals at the same time. So, a fraction of deposits as cash reserves is enough to meet normal demand. Also, the regular flow of net deposits in the form of deposits and withdrawals ensure that daily demand for cash is taken care of. Let us take an example by first assuming single banking system. Let us assume that there is a single bank in the entire commercial banking system. All the transactions of money are conducted via this bank. All payments are made through checks issued by this bank. All receipts are deposited into this bank. The balance sheet of this bank is as shown in the table. Suppose that a person deposits $100 in this bank. It means that the assets as well as liabilities of the bank rose by $100. Deposits can be lent out, assuming LRR to be 10%. This bank can loan out only 90% of the deposits received, and it has to keep 10% as cash reserves. It is also assumed that LRR does not change and the bank does not keep excess reserves. So, $90 out of initial $100 is lent out. When it is lent to a person, the loan amount is credited to the borrower's bank account, which he can use wholly or partly. In any case, the amount that is loaned out comes back to this bank in the form of fresh deposits. The balance sheet of the bank will be like given table. The new deposits not only raise the liabilities of this bank in the form of deposits, but also give it the opportunity to advance more loans, but only after keeping appropriate reserves against these deposits. It will keep 10% of $90, that is $9, and will lend the balance. In the subsequent rounds, it can keep on raising its advances in the form of loans until it exhausts all the excess reserves. In all the next rounds, the balance sheet of this bank will be as shown in given table. This process of deposit creation will come to an end when total cash reserves become equals to the initial deposit. But an important question is that by how much total deposits rise in response to the initial deposit. This is answered by concept of deposit multiplier, which in turn is determined by LRR. Generally, total deposits rise by a multiple of initial deposit, and that multiplier is called the deposit multiplier. It is given by deposit multiplier is equals to 1 divided by LRR. In the above example, LRR is 10% or 0.1. So the deposit multiplier equals to 1 by 0.1, which is equals to 10, which is equals to 1 by 0.1 into 100, which is again equals to 1000. Thus, we saw that total of balance sheet is 1000, which is exactly equal to the total amount of deposit creation. Out of this, $100 is cash reserve requirement and $900 is created out of initial deposit of $1,000. The process of credit creation can also be understood from given table. Deposit creation continues in several rounds after the bank receives an initial deposit of $100. The process of credit creation can also be understood from given table. Deposit creation continues in several rounds after the bank receives an initial deposit of $100. In every round, bank loans out all the excess reserves by keeping the required legal reserves, which is 10% of the deposits. Every time the bank receives fresh deposits, it keeps 10% of it and lends the balance. At every round, the total of loan and cash reserves exactly matches deposits. This process comes to an end when cash reserve reach their minimum required limit or equal to the amount of initial deposits. Total deposits rise by a multiple of initial deposit, and that multiple is the deposit multiplier. It can be seen that the size of deposit multiplier varies inversely with LRR. Higher the LRR, lower the deposit multiplier, and hence lesser will be the money creation. It is illustrated in given table by assuming different values of LRR and initial deposit of $100. Thus, higher the reserve requirement for the banks, lower will be the amount of total deposit created. Moving on to multiple banking system, in reality, there is no single banking unit in the commercial banking system. Rather, there exist multiple banks, and loans extended by one bank may be deposited into the deposit account of another bank. However, the existence of multiple banks does not affect the working of credit creation process. In multi-banking system also, all banks need to maintain the minimum legal reserves, which are a fixed fraction of total deposits. Let us assume that Bank 1 receives a primary cash deposit of $100. Its balance sheet will be like the given table. After Bank 1 receives the initial deposit of $100, it keeps 10% of this as legal reserve and lends the excess reserve of $90. When Bank 1 loans out $90 out of $100, its balance sheet position becomes like in the given table. Now, with the multi-banking system, we cannot assume that loan extended by Bank 1 will be deposited back into Bank 1 itself. Suppose that those who receive $90 as loan from Bank 1 spend the same and money comes back to the banking system, let us say to Bank 2 in the form of deposits. The balance sheet of Bank 2 is shown in the given table. Bank 2, after keeping 10% reserves, lends the rest of $81 to the borrowers in the form of loan. Its balance sheet thus becomes as given in the given table. Those who receive $81 as loan from Bank 2 may spend the amount, and again money comes into the banking system, but now with Bank 3. The balance sheet of Bank 3 is given in the given table. This process of credit creation in the multi-bank system will continue until the original deposit gets completely exhausted in the system. The original deposit of $100 becomes $90, then $81, which will again keep on expanding until the sum becomes a multiple of the initial deposit of $100. In this case, the value of deposit multiplier is 10 as LRR is 0. Thus, the process of credit expansion will continue until the sum of 90 plus 81 plus 72.90 plus so on becomes 1000. That is 10 times the initial deposit. So, just like in a single bank system, all the banks in the multi-bank system create a multiple increase in deposit money by keeping no excess reserves and expanding their deposits in step with each other. Now, we will see the concept of supply of money and money multiplier. The monetary authority, that is, the central bank, manages and brings about money into the economic system. The central bank of a country has a direct control over the monetary base or the stock of high-powered money in the economy. This is called as high-powered money because money stock act as the base with which bigger stocks of monetary assets are created. Monetary base consists of currency, that is banknotes and coins, which are held by public and the banks, and of deposits which are held by the commercial banks with the central bank, that is reserves. The stock of high-powered money is brought into circulation by the central bank through the issue of securities and government debt instruments. The division of high-powered money in the form of currency and bankers' deposits is determined by the individual decision makers. If people are more inclined to hold cash in hand, then currency component of high-powered money, that is H, will be higher. So, currency in circulation in the economy is completely demand-driven. H is equals to C plus R. Equation says that total cash in the economy can take the form of currency or bankers' deposits, that is reserves. The amount of reserves is determined by reserve to deposit ratio as fixed by the central bank. Let it to be written as R by D or small r. Thus, R is equals to small r into D. Let us also assume that public is in the habit of keeping a fraction of deposits in cash form. This currency to deposit ratio can be written as C by D or small c. Thus, C is equals to small c into D. Using equations R is equals to small r into D and C is equals to small c into D, we get small c into D plus small r into D is equals to H. D is equals to H divided by C plus R. This equation shows that deposits are a multiple of the given stock of H and rise by the reciprocal of the sum of cash to deposit ratio and reserve to deposit ratio. This will look the same as deposit multiplier if C assumes 0 value and H be taken as the initial deposit. It means that a higher value of small r lowers the increase in deposits. In the modern economy, the total amount of money called the money supply or money stock has many measures like M0, M1, M2, M3. Money supply is the stock of money held by the public at a point of time in an economy. It includes total amount of money in circulation. The total money supply in an economy with a banking system consists of currency, that is both notes and coins, and demand deposits, that is D. It excludes the amount of currency held by commercial banks as reserves and all the cash and gold stock held with the central bank. This is because these components are not in circulation. Most measures of money supply include wide range of assets apart from the components of high-powered money. Money supply M is written as M is equals to C plus D. Using equation D is equals to H by small c plus small r and C is equals to small c into D, we get M is equals to small c plus 1 divided by small c plus r into H. M is equals to small m into H, where small m is equals to C plus 1 divided by C plus R. The component small m in equation is known as money multiplier as it tells us the size of money supply for the given stock of high-powered money. It can be generalized from this expression that higher the values of C and R, lower will be the size of money multiplier and lesser will be the resulting money supply. This is the same as deposit multiplier explained earlier, with two differences. Instead of deposit creation with the initial deposit, this is the case of money creation with the given stock of high-powered money. Public's desired cash to deposit ratio was assumed to be 0 earlier. Let us analyze the determinants of money supply. Money supply is the stock of money held by the public at a point of time in an economy. It is determined by the two main determinants. First, monetary base or high-powered money, that is H, and second is the money multiplier, that is small m. Monetary base or high-powered money, that is H, it is a significant determinant of the size of money supply. Money supply varies directly in relation to the changes in the monetary base. Monetary base refers to the supply of funds available for use either as cash or reserves of the central bank. In short, it represents the total cash in the economy. Monetary base or the stock of high-powered money changes due to the policy of the government and it also influenced by the value of money. Money multiplier, that is small m. It exerts a positive influence upon the money supply. An increase in the size of small m will increase the money supply and vice versa. The value of money multiplier is in turn affected by first, currency to deposit ratio, that is small c, and second, reserve to deposit ratio, that is small r. Currency to deposit ratio. It is a behavioral ratio as its value depends on the willingness of people to hold currency rather than deposits. Its effect on the money multiplier cannot be clearly recognized as it enters both as a numerator and a denominator in the money multiplier expression. But as long as the small r ratio is less than unity, a rise in the C ratio must reduce the multiplier. Reserve to deposit ratio. A smaller r enables greater expansion in the credit by the banks and thus increases the money supply and vice versa.
Now, let us summarize what we have learnt in this module. Money can be created in the economy either by printing new currency or by expanding the existing stock of money. Most countries resort to the latter option for the expansion of money by the process of credit creation. This is undertaken by the commercial banks who operate on fractional reserve banking and create credit on the basis of deposits they receive. Money supply is the total amount of money in circulation. It also comprises currency and demand deposits. The supply of money is in turn determined by the value of money multiplier and the stock of monetary base, that is currency and reserves.